Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I've been getting a lot of requests to show some of the wildlife, and I do paint a lot of wildlife and elk and the deer and well the cougar, where you can't really see it back there. But I do paint a lot of different types of wildlife, and so today we're going to do this elk. And I grew up around Roosevelt elk. And they're one of my favorite subjects to paint. What I have out here, this is a 20-inch by 14-inch. So I made a, your standard length is about 18 inches, and you can put it on an 18-inch. But this is just a board, and then I gave it a coat of white, not even really opaque, and sanded that through. And down with a little 180 grit sandpaper, and then kind of did my idea. I want a bull elk and maybe put a cow right here. And then I have some trees I'm going to put some trees in here. I'm going to do a very impressionistic, where I'm going to bring the viewer my idea here. It's not just to paint an elk, but I'm going to do an impressionistic painting to bring in the viewer's eye right into this particular area. And so I'll be using some different types of colors, toning techniques, edges. We'll talk about that as we get going. My palette here is going to stay pretty simple. This is my favorite palette for painting on YouTube. Matter of fact, this part of it is here. The Hansa, the Diarylite, Yellow Oxide, Naphtha Red Light, Burnt Sienna, Pine Green, Phthalo Blue, Quinacridone Violet, Red Violet, White. I have out a little cap of extender medium here, which I'm going to use right away. It slows down the drying time. It also thins the paint. And then I have a bit of the Daravan open medium, which I like to use with the paints here when I want to get some thick alla prima strokes. I put out two colors here, one in which I use a lot every time I paint wildlife, just because it's a shortcut, and this is called medium beige. It is a shortcut color. You see me sometimes use it on landscapes and stuff, but it's a medium beige. And then I also have out some light gray, and I love this type of colors on a background. So what I'm going to start out with first is just a big brush here. And I'm just going to take some water and some of my medium beige and gray. This is some of my favorite colors to work as a background. And I'm gonna leave some of the white, but I want some of the tone that is going to be used in the elk to sit as kind of a real soft background color. So I'll leave a little bit of the light streaking. I'm just using a big wide 2-inch what we call a fusion brush, which I love to use. I'm going to leave a bit of the light color sitting out here, because it's again, this is going to be an impressionistic. I'm not going to paint realism. Well, I'll paint the elk a little bit towards realism, but I want some of the background and some of the motion and movement and stuff that I have there. I want to leave those streaks and just get brave with that. Let's also push in some. I do like a complement basically to the main tones and stuff of the elk is going to be the burnt sienna, and a complement to that is the blue. So usually when I do some type of wildlife, I take a lighter blue color and I like to push that into some areas just to come through, like just to give it an idea of sky or something coming through here like that. And it just gives a nice refreshing kind of a cool color in there as well. So I like that. And then we're gonna build some pine trees right back behind them here. That's where my plan is. Okay, so I have this idea and I have this plan, and many times those of you that follow me see I change it sometimes. But I'm going to take some pine green, and some burnt sienna and some pine green here, and a little bit of water. I don't want this to stay wet for too long, and I'm just going to work this right out through here, where I might want to have some this is just background movement basically before I go painting anything in there. Now sometimes when I'm going to go to a smaller brush here, I might just drag. Sometimes I like color movement, so I don't want it to cut. If you cut it right here at the cow, you get what we call a tangent line, so I don't want to do that. So I want to take just even though some of that will probably cover up, I want to take just a bit of that back there. Now, what I like to do quite a bit is to put in some really powerful, either what we call a horizontal or vertical stroke into the painting. Now, this guy is just sitting a little bit at an angle. She is at a horizontal. So what I like to do to counter that is I'm going to put in a very powerful vertical stroke that really kind of counters her just a bit. I'm just going to push that up. This is this pine green. This is my 1-inch brush here. Okay, and I'll back it out of the elk so I don't have to re-sketch him there. Back that out a little bit, but that's gonna put in this thrusting movement here, and she's gonna go horizontal, and he's gonna be sitting here as a major set of interest. And we might just put in a bit more, even for like a ground line or idea of a ground line in there like that, and she'll come up right there by that. And I'll leave some strong strokes, hopefully. Sometimes I paint them out, and I don't like when I do that, but I'll leave some of that just strong, powerful stuff. Keep that mostly in. See, I can even put a horizontal, but then I can pull it with my paper towel there right back into its... right back into a nice vertical. So as you see right now, what I'm really kind of looking for is this. I want the viewer's eye to come right into a nice dark, and here's a little bit of green modeled in my brush here, green and burnt sienna here, coming right out here like this, right out into that area. That's basically where I want the viewer to kind of go right in there. That's kind of the plan, okay? So now there's a lot of, when you're painting wildlife, there's a lot of wildlife painters that are excellent wildlife painters, and some are on YouTube and stuff that you can go watch. But there are quite a few of them who always say start with the head and the face, basically your subject matter. And if you can get that correct, then you can move on from there. And one of that is you get that contrast. And of course, this is the area that I really want to work, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to work with a smaller synthetic. This is a smaller synthetic, number 4 synthetic brush, filbert, basically. That's going to allow me to get some nice calligraphy and stuff like that. And I like the elk in there. I like the body of this elk. I like the head of this particular elk. And then I took him and turned him just a little bit more here because I like to have that turn. And so I'm going to start here with some darks. I'm going to start like a Premier Coup technique. In a portrait technique, you start with the darks. And I'm going to take burnt sienna and phthalo blue. And when I work a lot of details, I usually put my hand on a rest here like this. Now, I'm going to come in here. You can tap a little bit of this right now into his eye, so that's where the eye is going to be. Might as well do her there at the same time. Okay, so that of course is the nice little spot of the eye. They'll have a darker nose, and I'm going to look at the reference photos and stuff here. And the inside, the nostril back down here will have a nice dark right here. And I just tap my brush out just a bit. Now, their nose it comes down, and it is almost what we call squared off. So I kind of visualize this almost, I don't round it down because it doesn't go that way. I kind of bring it down and almost like paint it square, a brush mark going this way, a brush mark going that way. So a brush mark coming out the angle, a brush mark coming down this particular way. I'll put in just with the chisel of the brush the line there for the mouth of the elk here, the little bowl here. So basically what we're going to be doing is kind of squaring off their head. Now, let's go a little bit more burnt sienna here. Lighten this up. Sometimes I'll add just we're going to do so many tones in here, but I'll lighten this up to a gray, a little bit of white, a little bit of gray, so it's a little lighter. They have a darker kind of band here that goes between the eyes, and so I'll pull down this way, like that, and sometimes I'll use my finger just so that you remove some of the paint, because I want to keep an impressionistic edge to this. Sometimes my finger removes too much there, but you got to have fun with it. Now, the top knot up there by his antlers, you see a lot of gray and stuff, and it's hard to see in those photos, but up by the antlers, they go quite a bit more burnt sienna. So let's get that top knot up here in more burnt sienna, and we'll just bring those kind of tones together there. So I'm kind of blocking in the tones. The back part of his eye, while I have that burnt sienna, I do like to put a little bit of burnt sienna into their eyes, which also helps. And it's really hard to see, I know that, but I'll put that in there. And that gives you a warm cool, and it gives more life and to the elk. I like that a lot better. All right, so as we come down the sides, basically what we're going to do is work some yellows, or some burnt sienna, some yellows. What makes those beautiful colors here is little bits of green, this into your burnt sienna. That makes beautiful painting tones for the elk, along with your base tone, which can be more of the medium beige here, which works quite well here for the oak. But let's just take a little bit of green, burnt sienna, maybe a little bit of beige here, and we'll pull down the side. So here we're going to pull down the front, and then here our brush calligraphy has to be pulling down. This sets the side plane of his face. Okay, so when you're painting, it's no different than painting a rose and everything else. You paint it in the planes, and you paint the structure, and so the side plane here of his face is going to be really important there. Okay, so we'll put that in. We'll come with a tone, maybe a little more burnt sienna into that tone here. We'll pull down, there's right below the tear duct where on his face is going to be right down here at this little angle, and then shift your brushwork kind of to that angle there, pulling down. So pull down, pull this way. The top knot can round a bit, and then come down into that top of that forehead. Long ways to go, but you start it right now. Let's take a bit of green with that. I wiped out his ear with my glaze, so I get to resketch that. But right there in front of his ear, pull that right up there by the antlers. Okay, we'll drop that in. And so that sets up. Now, see, I left that light eye ring around, and they do have a light eye ring around that eye there. And so I'm just going to grab a little bit of white, some yellow oxide, some of my beige here, and basically the color that is the board right there. And I'm just I'm gonna put it in big. What I like to do is put stuff in big and then paint it into position here. So I'll drop that in. Could be, because I have that little bump in his eye over here, we could put just a little bit over there. And she's going to get that same kind of light, not as defined. The cow doesn't have as defined a light ring, but we'll put a little bit on her. And let's put a bit, I'm going to add some extender. You could use extender or open medium here. More of a beige here. Let's put that side plane here of a face on her. It's a little dark, but that's okay. So pull down below here. Okay, so if you get any kind of brush movements or texture or anything like that, it's pulling at the correct direction for her. Okay, so that puts that in. Now we'll just model up some more burnt sienna here. But you could use open medium in here as well. I like to use the extender because I'm keeping my colors kind of thin. So we'll pull the side plane right up there by his nostril here. Pull some of that tone here. He gets a little bit lighter underneath the chin here. So we'll just tap that color in. There, like that. And I like all the different tones. That's what really makes him, is you start to get all these tones. Let's go back up here to a little bit of the dark and the gray and just kind of tap that, fill that in. So that sets as you can see some of the different tones there in his face. That sets it in, and that's just the beginning that we do. And I'll repeat those tones again, slightly different. And, as I go and build his face and stuff. Let's go, I'm going to step over, put that brush aside for a second, and I'll step up a little bit larger, maybe to like a 6 or an 8. This is an 8 here. And I'm going to come in, and I'm going to start some of my darks, and it will work his mane here, basically. And we'll take a little blue and a little burnt sienna. Let's add a bit of the open medium to that, and we'll pull this down here right down to there, right where it gets to right by that shoulder. And I'm going to leave that right there, so that's going to help pop his head forward here, see? Okay, and maybe a little bit more dark. Change the tone. Don't ever paint for too long with the same tone. We'll change the tone here. We'll drop a little more dark right out here real quickly, right like that. I like to leave a few little strokes into it. And let's come right around, put a bit of that, would be right back by the back side shadow of his ear there, and then that'll bring his head forward there. Okay, so we just need a bit of it. And then his mane's going to get a little lighter as it comes back towards his body. So a little burnt sienna, maybe just a bit of that gray, a bit of yellow here. And I had that kind of humped on there. I think I'm going to take that out and push his neck up this way. And I'll pull that out. So this is going to be pulled that way. Okay. And then gets a little more yellow, maybe a little bit of burnt umber, or excuse me, of the medium beige. The yellow, medium beige, a little bit of the burnt sienna. And we'll get just a touch lighter here, and we're going to kind of bring this mane this way and then bring them together just lightly with your brush, just some strokes that kind of bring it together. So you get some of that different coloring there inside of that mane. I want maybe a little more burnt sienna and yellow. This is what we would call a half tone, right in between those two, to get just a bit more interest right in there. And you try to do it. I know it's hard. So my biggest recommendation to all of you is, you know, if you're a beginner can do this, but what you have to do is you have to think about your stroke before you do it. You don't want to come in here and work any stroke too long if you're painting fur on an animal or something like that, because you'll lose all what we call the brush calligraphy, the brush movement, okay? Now, a lot of people call calligraphy, you know, lettering and stuff like that, but the old Dutch masters call calligraphy the movement of the brush, okay? So you'll lose that movement of the brush, which adds the interest, and you don't want to do that. So you only want to take one, maybe two strokes with a brush, and then you want to change up the tone a bit here, so that you don't stroke too long with the same color, and that is what gives you a beautiful calligraphy to it. Okay, and remember that. That's really important. It took me a while to learn that. So now I'm going to go more beige here, okay? And I love this, and I kind of drew it here, but I want to bring it out a little bit more. That big shoulder muscle that's right here on him, that really stand out on the elk. I'm going to leave a major stroke right there. Matter of fact, I'm going to go a little lighter and a little more yellow here, and push that up right down there like that. That looks pretty good. I like that big shoulder coming up there. We could have a little yellow burnt sienna right on the edge of that, right there, right where that mane is coming in. Just a little bit of a stroke. See, leave that calligraphy, that stroke. That's what adds it. If I touch that again, I'll lose it. Does that make sense? It'll all blend together. So you kind of sit down and you think about your stroke, what you want to make, and then you apply it, and then don't play with it too much. So I'm going to model the colors here. They have a nice colored humpback right back through here, humping their neck and their back, almost with mane color. Then I'll drag a little bit of that other color right in there like that. And I like that. Let's take a bit of the shadow. So anytime I'm going to shadow, I head over towards my greens, which gray it a bit. I might even add open medium now. And it's your choice when you're going to do it. I'm going to build the back part of his body here. And see those strokes. I leave those. I like that modeling to go in there. Don't play with it too much. It's really easy. And for me, you know, coming from decorative painting, I used to just play with my strokes quite a bit. Work that in there, and then they would all go flat. Okay, so you have to kind of plan it. So here I'm going to paint his leg. I know light's going to come in this way. I want the shadow stroke of his leg to come here, and I'm painting with a real dirty brush. I want the stroke to be a little bit smaller, so I turn my brush so I'm at a bit of just a bit of the chisel there with that. and I like that a lot better. Let's come right in between that, maybe a little bit lighter of a tone, and round that. It's got to be, see, I stopped. It was the wrong color. I want it just a bit darker than that big shoulder stroke. So I'm going to take a little green, a little bit of my beige and white and stuff, and I want it a little bit darker, not quite, than that, there we go, than that shoulder stroke right there. Because I want the light to hit that big part of his shoulder. Now it's just a touch green. I can take care of that because I am a professional. But see, I'm kind of looking at my colors, my tones, and see how everything is not, see, even when I take a stroke here, how it's not real mixed up. So I'm constantly adjusting it a little bit here as I'm painting it. So my colors have all of this lovely movement in it. And that's what you hear me say about roses and stuff all the time there too. The hardest thing is, so many people think, oh, you got to paint in oils because you got to have that wet edge and stuff. Well, I'm not painting. I'm painting pure acrylic here. Yeah, I'm slowing it down a little bit, but I'm not doing any blending strokes there. See, that's the difference. I'm not blending. I'm doing it all right here. So I'm working my wet edges of my colors and stuff right here. Let's take some of this, maybe a bit more yellow and a bit of burnt sienna. Change that tone so you can see that's the elk. Isn't that beautiful right in there? Let's build this up here through his body here. See those nice tone strokes there. And that's going to give me some nice, a little bit more yellow, a little bit. So when I go to the light, I add more yellow. And sometimes I'll add a different yellow, even a little bit of red here. You can always work off that beige. See, I'm so close to that medium beige there anyway, but I like these kind of streaks. I'm going to pick up some of that light. I'm going to bring out that shoulder stroke one more time here, a little bit more light here. And sometimes I'll do that because that just makes it look like hair, just pushing the colors. I call that incorporating the colors, pushing them together. Since we're going to round up, let's drop, here's my light. I'm going to drop it down just a bit here. So it's not quite as light, see? It's just a little bit, but that's all it needs. That's all it needs here. And we'll drop it down just a bit more here. Come right along his back. We'll set some of those colors there into his back. Let's go a bit more towards our shadow right here. Right in there. I want to bring that shoulder up a bit wider, a bit more. They're big and powerful. And so I'm going to bring some more light right up across that. And I'll incorporate that. Stroked it just a bit too long. Lost some of that interest there. So, but you'll see me in other lessons, those of you that follow my wildlife paintings, where I mix tones for each one of the strokes to bring those out. And I like doing it that way also. But now we can round down just a bit. It's going to be too light. Let's drop it down a bit. Round down just a bit to put his barrel in. There. That'll be good. Let's redefine. Now see, I'm not adding anything here. So over here is almost a little dry. If you want to just work the color real quick, you can add just a little water and see how water works it up and works it. Or you can add some extender to keep it wet longer, but I don't like to play too long with my colors here. I like to just put them on, and if I have to remix them, I remix them because I'm a tone painter more than anything else. Love those tones. All right, so let's take a bit of that burnt sienna and some of that yellow. Let's put that driving color right back there on his rump here. There'll be a bit of this right underneath the V of his tail here. And then I'm going to start to let him go very much. Their rumps have more yellows and stuff like that into them as well. So I'm just going to kind of block this in, but I'm going to let this go very much impressionistic. In other words, impressionist edge here. Soften down. I'm going to see. I don't know if it'll work or not, but I kind of want to bring the viewer into here, into his face and his eyes and stuff like that. So I want to bring that impressionist edge right up in there. And let's grab, they have a little bit of dark. You see that dark on the back of their legs there. So we'll grab that. We won't paint the whole thing. I'm going to let some of it fade away. So it's going to come up the back of his leg here, very impressionistically. Just push your brush around a little bit, and then we'll let it fade. And let's do the other side over there. Change the tone just a bit. Here, do the other side, and let that fade away. Here, just a bit. Okay, and then we'll take a little bit of the yellow with that, just a bit there. So I want to leave that just kind of impressionistic. Now I like that tone. I'm going to go to the other side there, his leg on the other side, use some of that right back here to just drop in that part of his leg into the shadow side over there, and we'll let that go impressionistic. And see, sometimes when I really want to go impressionistic, I'll pull across and blur the edge. That's what I'm kind of looking for. So we can do that there. Let's bring, so especially when I'm working with shadows and everything like that, I really like the extender because it keeps it, it just keeps it thinner. And it doesn't have power. I like power in my lights, not into my darks. And that's what, landscape painters believe that too. So I believe the same thing. Now, I want to lighten up. That's dried down on his shoulder quite a bit. So I want to lighten that shoulder up even more and pull that stroke, that heavy shoulder stroke, down a bit more. And that's building it. Sometimes it takes me 3-4 times to build a shoulder stroke up that I really like to have on the elk, but that's okay. I love to paint, so I can do it a few times. And I'll build this up a bit there. And when I go to those lights, that's when I switch over to that open medium. I really like that there. So I'll leave a few of those, that brush calligraphy up there. I kind of like that. Maybe a softer, little half tone, just to soften some of that off. And that's good areas there where, in that, that has a bit of blue, which will make it go green. I don't want to do that. No green elk. Bit more yellow. Bit more yellow right up in here usually works out real nice with their, and then with their mane, and we'll go add a bit of burnt sienna. See those tones? Those all just work really nice right in there. We'll work that. So I'm thinking that light's coming up here. It's traveling a little higher on his neck because his head's bent. I wanted his head kind of bent there. And we'll go blue and a little burnt sienna. Pull that shadow down. See, when you come back like a second or a third time with some of those tones, they really start to pop out. Now, I want this back here to really kind of soften out, even maybe a little bit more so. And so what I'm going to try is a little bit of water right in my paper towel as this starts to dry up, and pull it this way just a bit to blur that off. So I want the viewer's eye to come right up into the main part of him, which is up by his face. So I'm just going to, very suggestive here, paint this very suggestive in some marks and movements. Now I did like this other, so if I take out too much, I get to do it again. Just put a little bit of that back in there. But I really want to build the textures and stuff up here into his shoulder. And we'll take that burnt sienna, remember that green, or you can go over here to your medium beige. Let's add a bit of white and some open medium, which will keep it nice and thick. Let's put down this slightly darker, slightly more green, just slightly. Here, push down that. So I'm going to build a couple times some of the textures that he has up in this front part of him here. And that takes time. That takes time to build that. Let's grab some of that yellow, that light here. Pull that down. And each time I do it, I'm getting an idea about what I want that part of the elk to look like here. So you can see that pulling down, and I do this angle with my brush holding it like this, so that I'm painting a lot of textures, and basically my brush is very flat onto the surface, and that's what these fusion brushes do. These fusion brushes are made to do those kinds of things, that they get that dragging stroke, which makes it look like, you know, highlights, little lights hitting the edge here of his fur and stuff here. Here we go. And a bit of that right back here by his rump. There. That's all good. I could, see, he has that big rounding part of his shoulder there. The dark really needs to come back down just a touch more. So I'm just going to grab some burnt sienna and a little bit of blue. Pull that dark down. That's better on him. There. Here we go. And sometimes I'll leave that, especially like, you know, that's a pretty good. I could have a slight bit of yellow in that, but I'll leave that. Yeah, that's a slight bit of yellow right there. It's a nice, that wasn't good. Taking off that edge there just a bit. There. And maybe a bit down the front of him there. We'll get that nice contrast in there. And let's grab thinner shadow, so a little bit of extender. Rework that shadowy stroke right there on the back of his leg. Right there on his body. Just the idea there. Sketchy, just go more sketching idea there. With that. A bit more yellow and light. Pulls that big shoulder muscle there. There we go. Just like that. A little bit more light. Yeah, a little bit more. Pulling right up here. Right there like that. See, that's what I like that. And so you basically are taking some of the big strokes now and, you know, shaping his body a bit. So back here onto his rump, he'll have some of that shape. And matter of fact, you can pull some of that shape here, put a little bit in. And this is where, you know, it's kind of like I'll decide a bit of it, but I don't have to be perfect or precise with it right now. I can do some changes later on. So a little bit of the, pull that down, round that nice big bit of him there. And see, I'll collide this with a little halftone here. Just kind of bring that in. Just adds more interest to it. So the variety of your strokes and what you use is so important. Let's put just a bit more yellow as we head up right here. It's a little light as we head into that mane right there. And then we'll go yellow to the burnt sienna. So I'm bringing those tones together. It's a little too orange, but not too bad. So we pick some of that up there. I think I need a new paper towel. Change it. It's not really wiping anything out of my brush when I use that. But I wipe my brush quite often, especially when I'm changing colors or tones. I wipe it quite often here. There we go. See, that gives us some nice interest right in there. And as he's switching over, I mean, you'll see sometimes they'll have the dark mane. And don't always use burnt sienna. Use burnt sienna with a little green that grays it out. Gives you a slightly, see how it's a slightly different color tone there. And that gives just a nice little interest to that, you know, to his head there. All right, so that sets that part of him. Let's go with some burnt sienna, some yellows here, maybe a bit of the green. that keeps it from going too much of an orange. And we'll pull a little bit of that down here onto his face here, which I like there. And we'll put some light colors and stuff like that in there as well. And I'll build this one more time. I'm watching, more than anything else, I'm watching as it's drying down how much textures and stuff I want to have on there. And that's what I want. And so I'll look at that. That's camera 1, and it's sitting at 8 feet. And I'll look at that, the monitor there, and see just how much it's going back there. And decide whether or not, how much I want to do in that particular area. Now, let's bring in, before I'm going to be darkening and lightening, and I'm going to be building this again, but let's bring in some of the gray, burnt medium beige, and some of my gray. That makes great tones here. A little water. I'm just going to use a little water, thin that out. This makes great tones to start in the antlers up here. Okay, and the antlers I usually spend quite a bit of time on the antlers, but it's basically a light and a shadow. And I know it's very, very similar there. We'll vary that with a little bit of, because burnt sienna and green make a beautiful gray as well. We'll vary all of these colors into the painting of the antlers. And I usually, when I paint the antlers, I usually bring in some of the elk's colors into the antler as well. So, and that just makes them harmonize together better. I'm just going to bring some of that tone in. I try to do it in shorter shape following strokes there. Okay, and add just a bit of extender here. As I'm filling or working these antlers in here, this is so there's the one side of his antlers there. And we actually will go a bit darker. I like that one there with a bit darker up towards the tops and stuff here. So I used it. This is my little 2 number synthetic, or excuse me, my little 4 synthetic. And I do like it whenever I am doing a lot of detail, because I don't use a round. I usually use a small filbert, so I can slide the filbert here over onto its chisel and get a nice point, or I can flatten it out and use it and create some different looks that way. So rather than using the point of a round I found, at least for me, the round leaves little ridges of color that I have to try to paint around or get off or something, and that doesn't work for me, So I'm just going to add a little bit of extender here. Now, if I'm painting for pure Impressionism, I might consider, and we'll think about this, blurring this back one a bit. Right now, I'll do it just a touch darker, and because of the position of the light, I drew this one in and then painted it out with a green stripe, so I'll push that in. But I do want some of that to kind of, and since I'm going to have the dark and stuff in there and position of the light coming in like this, there'll be a shadow here on this side, but this inside of this antler right over here will be into the light. And that usually does happen. It's hard to see on this photo, but it is happening on that one there. So we will actually lighten up the inside of this antler. And this is usually what I do, is I'll paint them in like this, and then I'll work them again and again and again, until I get them to the colors, the shapes and stuff that I like. So these will go in a little lighter there. I'll track some of that light through the antler there and change some of the tones here as I bring that right there towards his top knot there. Okay, so that sets that in. So even when you look at this, so here's a little bit of the burnt sienna. I'll drag some of that. This is what makes pretty antlers. It's not just light and dark. you drag different tones from the elk into the antler here, and then as you paint your light and dark, the viewer picks up some of these other tones. So it's a nice variety of tones and stuff here, okay? And that's what I'm looking for here, this nice variety of these particular tones. I'm going to push that little bit of light, so I'll do a little more detail work here so I can fix some of my coloring that I want. Underneath this, it's got to go just a bit lighter, okay? And then I want to bring in some more of that yellow and the medium beige and the burnt sienna here down on the side stroke here. I want to build this side plane of his head up a bit more with some texture, so it's really going to kind of come forward here, and we'll build a touch more light right around that eye here. And basically what it is you stroke the side plane, you pull down here towards the front of the nose, and then you block up and down that front, and that gives him a much better look here. And I'll tap in smaller little, like lighter yellow details and stuff like that up here into the front of his nose. I'll work some of that. You'll see some of that. For all you members, what I'll do, members of the channel, what I'll do is I'll put a nice close-up, over on the community page, and you can go there and look at the nice close-up about how much detail and stuff that I put in there. It doesn't take long, just takes a few minutes to do that. But that's some of the things I'm thinking about when I'm doing that. And I'm just varying my tones back here. A little bit more burnt sienna. We'll push some of that in, and I'll paint right into that eye ring there, so it's not all exactly the same. Here, bring that in. And then we're going to go over and do the same thing over here onto the cow. We'll use the same colors, do the same type of thing over here. I'm going to put a little more light to see. Yeah, that's about, because it'll dry down a bit on that inside, the light. It's going to show you where the light's going to hit here, okay? And so that's going to help quite a bit. And then I got to decide, because I'm thinking about putting that tree and stuff right out here, just the idea of the tree, the idea of the ground and stuff here. And I want to do it very powerfully, just kind of, I want to put a little bit of that in here. I'm going to take a little more burnt sienna and some yellow, not burnt sienna, the medium beige and yellow, maybe a bit of burnt sienna into that here. And let's see, she comes back down this way, so we'll put in the idea, and I want to put in some idea of some like grasses and stuff here that are going to come up this way. These are ideas, and they're very easy, and as long as I keep them very casual like this, and I'll pull through to all kinds of different things here. As long as I keep that all casual and stuff, it's easy to change my mind and give a nice look to it. As long as I keep them all just really casual. Let's put a little bit of green in there too. Just pulling through. See a bit of that green right in there. Try to keep that, because she's going to pop out, and this is just all pure for movement. Now, I want to have a bit more dark that's going to go right around his eye. Burnt sienna blue. Show you this here. Burnt sienna blue. I love that nice darker tone. See, that's going to help pop him out a bit. Play that dark. But I like the modeling or the movement that I get in through there with that. So I don't want to lose that. So I want a bit of that through him here, like that. There we go. And I think I might just leave that blue and stuff here for right now, that color. So what I'm going to do now is, I would consider myself about 10% into the painting right now. I'm going to go paint the cow with exactly the same colors, the same kind of things here. Block her in so I don't make too long a video for you guys here. I'll block her in, and then we'll come back and we'll paint through the the bull again, giving some more interest, and I'll show you a little bit more work on the antlers and stuff like that. And then we'll put in trees and some of the forward stuff, okay? But try to leave all of this movement. That's what's going to make it great, okay? All right, I'll see you guys in just a minute. I'm going to go paint the cow. Hi everyone, welcome back. Well, I put in the cow here, and again, very soft and kind of very impressionistic. That's what I really want her. Bring that back. I added, yet again, more light into here, and added a little bit more color and stuff to him. And I put a little bit of light green back behind here. I think, and I'll let that dry, and I'm standing back and looking at that. I think I might put a bit more. That's the beautiful thing about doing a model background like that. You can come back in there and just like say, put a small path of light back through there. So I'm going to take a little green and some of my yellows. Let's even maybe brighten it up a bit, just a bit with a little Hansa. Let's keep it thin with some extender and some white. Maybe a bit of medium beige in there just to model that just a bit here. So it's not just one, color here. Let's see what it looks like here, just breaking that up right into here, because I'll put the light and then I'll come back and swirl in some darks and see just how much I want to bring his nose here forward, or bring his face forward in there. That might be just a touch too light, so let's put a touch of burnt sienna and green in there. And this is a part I really kind of love, just kind of figuring it out here. And see, you just put that color in, just like I do, you see me do with birds and going back and painting back along the head line and stuff like that, and popping out certain parts of them. This is what the Impressionists will do, work their colors back like this and pop certain areas out. I like that dark right there with her, so maybe we'll just put a little green like right there with her, and I like that color in there. We'll push a bit of that right back in there. Now let's soften out back towards our siennas and stuff here, so we don't need it absolutely everywhere there, just almost like just a bit of it showing up there. Now, I think I took out too much, but this is what I like to do, is to paint back and forth like that until I get a nice movement, to the colors here. And, sometimes you put it on and make a mistake, and sometimes you go back and do it again. But this is what makes art fun, right? This is what we do. We're artists. We create, we try things. Don't get frustrated. It's just a little bit of paint on a board. Try some looks here. Let's just drag some of that a little further over here and give that look here like that. So it's not just in one area here. Let's drag that over here a bit more. That's the Impressionism that I like. I like that warmer yellow there too. So let's just go up a bit with that. And then that'll give us some basis. See, that a little bit of yellow in there keeps that from getting a cloudy look there. So, and you can get a cloudy look. Let's just break that just a touch with some sienna. That's that good impressionistic look that I like there. Looks like I followed around his face a bit, so I'll drag just a touch into the edges of it there. It's like that. Now, see, I'm going to put the Impressionism of the tree and then the antlers and stuff. So the Impressionism of the tree, I love this tree here. This is a photo that I purchased from Amazon, at Amazon Stock Photos. We take a little burnt sienna and a little pine green. This is still my number 8. And I'm going to capture the feeling maybe of that dark right there. And what I do is I kind of scrub with this, but I use the corners and the chisels so that I don't, and I don't make repetitive strokes. That's what I try to stay away from, is repetitive strokes, and maybe put a bit of that tree back up here. That's my impression of it that I want. And so you can put the whole tree back there. I don't think I'll do that. I'm gonna though put a few marks of that tree out here because I think that would be kind of interesting here to have that. And let's see, so a bit more, burnt sienna, and change the tone up here. So maybe a little bit more burnt sienna here. Yeah, that's got a little too much green. I want to get a bit of that burnt sienna, some of that elk color back up here. Just take a bit of that. And very scrubby, let it just, I'm thinking Impressionism. I don't need to paint the whole tree. I just want an idea of some trees out here. Let's even put a bit of that dark out because we can afford to have that out. Break up some of that just a bit here. And you see, this will give us room for having some of that light green and stuff in there as well. But just a corner of your brush, maybe back here, just an idea or so. And I'm just going to paint through some of the antlers. I'll put the antlers back on. It's what we do. I am a professional. You got to keep telling yourself that every once in a while. I'm going to thin that out with a little extender that just keeps it softer. Allows me to put some of the tone on that I want to have. Let's give another impression. Got a great idea here. Let's just give another impression of one right out through here. Just kind of scrub it around a bit. It's just impressions of trees and stuff. Well, that's what I really love to do. Let's put a stronger horizontal in there. So I look for that sometimes, where's that strong vertical that's coming right down through here? And where's that, is that vertical continuing down here? To break the plane so it gives a different crossing of that other one there. That's pretty good. And then we'll go just a touch light. I'm going to probably keep these fairly dark. I want this whole thing just kind of dark and rich looking. I don't want to get a whole lot of lights and darks going through the painting here. And so we'll push just a bit of these over here, right up into the front. Follow that same light side here, light side, dark side, kind of with your painting. And you can take some of that nice medium beige and white, a little bit of yellow. You can do the indication of a tree trunk in there if you want. Keep that just here. Again, I like the impression of it. Don't want to get super perfect with it. I like the impression. I like the impression of stuff. I like the color, the movement of the color and stuff. Now, that creates a little bit of a problem for some of his antlers here. But see, you can take some light color and back paint out just a few areas here that will help us pop the antlers forward here when we do the lights and darks on the antlers. That's the plan here. So let's take some of this light and dark here. Push some of that around here. And it doesn't, so if I really want to spot, I go what I call a spot of contrast. I could spot an area right there on his nose, see, and really pop it forward so that he really comes forward to that, and then push some of the other areas back with a, it doesn't take very much. See, it's just a little spot of of contrast, see, to really bring him forward. Does that make sense? You don't need it everywhere. It's just tiny little bits. So, you know, when you're painting and you're trying stuff, just try little things. Just try a little spot of it, you know, to help bring him forward a bit there. Which what I like, I really love that burnt sienna knot just sitting out there like that. I want to get another little stroke of burnt sienna through there. I like that in there like that. But that little bit of light, see, this does so great. Now, let's go back up. I'm going to go to my smaller little brush. We'll go back up with some burnt sienna, some blue here. Makes lovely gray. So does the naphtha red light and blue. That makes more of a great gray color, dark color. You can see it up here with a little bit of color. Beautiful colors for their antlers and stuff. And the antlers, I like them to really carry a whole bunch of different tones and stuff in it. We'll get some of this nice shadow there. See, it's that dark, and it's basically going to be contrast. It's going to pop these antlers off. So a little different color than what I used before. We'll work that through, round up into the next horn of the antler there. They round up just a bit. Look at the shapes of your antlers, where that shadow comes down into this one here, and where this is tracking a nice shadow all along the bottom there. There like that. And let's I do like shadows with the thinner, with the extender and stuff. So we'll look at that one there, and let's put a bit of that shadow right underneath here. Just a bit here. You can see that really, I like to spend a lot of time, I really do, because I used to not like painting antlers. Now I just love them, to get the interest to them. To me, it's kind of like the most interesting part of the big elk is the antlers, and so I like to take my time with lights and darks, and bring in this kind of, got rid of this long one. Let's see, I kind of curved it this way. Here. There we go. It's a little better. And end up drawing my antlers again here. But it's much better doing that than making it look like you painted around it, you know. You don't want to make it look like you painted around. So, drop this one in. There, that'll be good. And then we come back with the lights. And I'll take the lights and maybe put a little bit of beige, maybe even some of this nice gray in there too. Come back with the lights. Sometimes I like them to shift into the yellows here. And it's like when I paint these, I'll just do small, draggy little color spots of the colors onto the antlers here. And like that. And then I come back and build it again, and I build it again. Here. We'll drop this right up and around. And any of the hard edges, so I have these two colors here. We'll take some of the color of the elk here. Any hard edges, and see, there's a tone in the shadow. I'll make kind of a little half tone. So any hard edges that I have there, I'll just drag a little half tone over it. And you may end up repeating your shadows again. I usually end up doing that. And I'll go back and I'll make a slightly different tone. Here, slightly different, maybe a little more red into this one. Let's bring that shadow back up here. There. And I'll end up repeating that several times. Sometimes I paint the elk and stuff really fast. I give myself a timed painting, trying to paint them within an hour or so. and sometimes I like to really take my time. There's those of you that enjoy the elk, I have a online class. It's called King of the Mountain, and it's big elk and mountains and stuff. And I think that whole painting I filmed the whole thing, every stroke of it, and it was like 6 hours to paint it. So it's over on our website if you want to paint that one. And then we'll lighten that up, change that up a bit. And as I start to lighten up and get highlights and stuff, the good rule of art is the law of disproportionate colors. It gets lighter, it gets smaller. So I'll start to work some smaller areas of the tone here as I paint those. And got that, I think, a little bit more of the medium beige into that. It's a pretty color. Pull some more of that elk up here into the antlers. There we go. Yeah, that's a pretty color. So I'll just drag a bit of that around. So I'll put that on, and then sometimes I'll come back right away and push a slightly different little shadow into that. And see, just by repeating it a couple times, you start to get more interest and stuff into those antlers. And I'm going to want to slowly build these a little lighter and a little lighter. But each time I take a look at, and as my contrast increases, I can paint out a bit of that dark. So it's just a process, that's all. And it's a process where I'm watching the antler as I'm building the antler there. See, I like those little strokes like that. It just adds interest. So as I build it and stuff, then I'll start tapping across little strokes, little bits that give some more textures and stuff to the antlers. Just a bit warmer, a bit more burnt sienna. Let's drop that in a little bit more medium beige in there. See how it warms that. I'm just looking for nice coloring into those antlers. And as you see in these photos and stuff, this one's starting to get the look of that. And I can definitely come lighter. Definitely. We can pick out some lights, here, and drag down. Just a chisel of the brush, drag down some of that front edge to really bring that one forward. So maybe I see on that one there. Here we'll drop that up and in. And I got that light just a bit big for me. But that's what I like to do. And then I just take a little bit of shadow and paint into it. I like to overpaint and then tap back in and paint into it. See, because all of that right in there starts to give some excellent movement and stuff to it. So I'm going to go paint some antlers and give myself about 10-15 minutes here, and we'll come back and I'll show you some of the finishing things on this fun little painting. Okay? All right. See you in a minute. Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm just adding some more blue. It feels heavy with the color here. And see how the blue just kind of lightens it up. And so I'm just adding a little bit of that blue, which is kind of an in and out. It brings that coolness through. And I was just thinking maybe using just some phthalo blue, some white, some extender here, of just adding a spark or two of it over into here, because that just might, it brings the interest, but it just opens up the painting a little bit, see? And, some people will like it, some people won't like it. Hopefully, my customer will like it, And but I do like that little spark that it brings there. Now, I also brought over this. This is one that I did couple years ago, and what I did, to loosen up, because it's really hard to sometimes, and you can see that one there, it's really hard sometimes to loosen up, and so I always use timed paintings. So I gave myself an hour to paint this one. I actually painted it in 47 minutes, and you move, and you go, and that starts loosening up your brush. You know, casual painting, lost edges, and beautiful paintings are done by confident strokes. And to build that confidence, you got to do it really with timed paintings. My daughter, who went through and got her bachelor's and so on and so forth in the fine arts and stuff, said that's one of the first things that they taught in some of the classes was timed paintings. And you know, I read about it a number of years ago, and started doing it and loosening myself up. That's why I did that 30-minute roses, and you know, I did a lot of those. So I could go in and I could you know, add some more stuff in there. I have to look at the bottom ground line here as well. Let me just show you this. This is the frame. I built this frame for it last night when I was going to do this. And basically, it's a simple frame to make. Basically, I took a whiteboard and split it down and then turned the edge right here. And yeah, so the painting would go in here. Then what I did was I took some of the major colors out of the painting. Some of the burnt siennas, I stained the wood here with some burnt sienna, then put a little bit of the burnt sienna and green over it, and then when it was all dry, I washed the whole frame again with the medium beige color. So that's going to, hopefully they'll pop off of that. You know, it's a different look, and but what I wanted to do was look at it here and see, do I need a ground line, forcing a line here? And I think I might. And so, in other words, when I look at this, you know, do you need something to help anchor down that bottom side of the thing? Now, some people will like it. Some people will say, you know, no, you don't need it. And some people say, yeah, you need it. You know, here on this one, I put some dark back up underneath it, and it does anchor the ground, brings that ground in. So I was just thinking, but I want to do it really casual. So I'll bring out my 3/4 inch really casual brush, and what I'm going to do is tone that down just a bit with some green. Let's thin it out with even some open medium here, so my stroke doesn't have a lot of power. So I put some lighter yellows on earlier, and that didn't satisfy it enough. So if I just put in a few little touches, maybe even a little heavier, back up over this side here, like that, and give some vertical motion to it, that might do that there. And you can pull through with your paper towel to help some of that vertical there. And matter of fact, let's pull down just a little bit more right down here, like that. I like that. Yeah, that I like. Now, see, you can pop in some lighter strokes or something like that up there as well. There went the other painting, and but you look at that, and that anchors that quite well. It could go a little darker down at the very bottom. Now, you could also put in a little more light, and I think I might put in just a touch more light. These are all the things. Everybody's going to be a little different, you know. And of course, you know, like for me, if you're painting for a customer or something, you know, you pretty much read the customer how much contrast they're going to like, and so you can go back in and, you know, this is what, you know, popping in stuff like this is what's going to bring his face and stuff a little bit more farther forward, any of that contrast of light and stuff. But it's kind of fun, and you can play with it, and you know, and it's easy to adjust, and you know, it's just a fun painting. I think I'm going to leave these just as imaginary trees. I might, well, no might about it, I'm going to do it. I might put a few, let's thin it out, some burnt sienna, and use my number 8 tree brush. And I had taken those out over here. See, and this is the other thing, is, you know, there you have what we call a solvent technique. So I can take, now this I painted quite a long time ago, but I can take a damp paper towel. With the Heritage, you can do this for several hours. And I can come through here like this, see, and soften out those edges. and which I like to do, pull through sometimes and soften out those edges, especially if I want to blur. And see, I can still blur the back edge of that elk there as well. I can pull through here and soften out and blur any of those colors down through that area there as well, even the blues and stuff there. So if you think there's too much movement in something, you can just blur it out with a paper towel and some water, which is the solvent. And the Heritage will do this for several hours, and so you can bring that in and you can advance that. I will probably just clean up a couple areas on his antlers and stuff, but I like this. I like this contrast that's here. I like the brush strokes, the textures that are there. It's different, you know, and there are some that I paint, like if you want a more realistic elk, then you go look at King of the Hill, and he's very realistic and painted. And this one is just a little bit more, that's going to be a little bit too dark, just a bit more impressionistic, which gives these impressionist edges and pulls your eye right back up there, which is what I like, you know. So everyone is different in there. This is what is fun about painting, is we get to try all these different things. Okay, so hopefully you like that. I really liked you to come in right in there, and that's happening. She is just over there going, look at me, but that pulls you in right in there on that guy right there. So hopefully you enjoyed it. If you want to see more, you know, and some different looks that we can do as artists, then make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that like button and hit the comments. If you go through my videos, you'll see I read every one of your comments and I answer all your comments too. So, you know, leave us a comment and stuff, and if there's something you want to see, and we'll get to it, okay? Thanks very much for joining me. Hit the subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Oh, and don't forget, we got that Western over there, all drawn up. I've got 2 Westerns all drawn up, ready to film. I start filming them day after tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to do a casual rose for you, and we'll put that up, and then the Westerns, okay? All right, see you guys.